Okay, welcome to the Average Dad channel. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm trying to recondition this factory second Telecaster neck that I purchased. And I was in kind of rough shape, and I'm going to build a Telecaster from used parts. But one thing about this is it had the gloss finish on it, and I want to put that back. But when they put the lacquer finish on it, there was runs. I mean, one thing about this is the frets didn't even come to the end of the fretboard, so my strings, and I had this on a guitar, my strings used to get caught under the edge of these frets. So I'm going to refret it. So, you know, I already took most of the frets off. I think what I'm going to try to do, I want to keep the amber finish. So on places where the finish has been sanded down, I think I'm going to try to put some shellac on there, and just like some amber shellac, and see if I can get the color consistent. And then I'm going to clear lacquer, either brush it on or spray it on again. I know a lot of people don't like the lacquer finish on the fretboard. I actually like it. I like that shiny lacquer finish. It's fine with me. One thing about the back, I replugged the old holes. You can probably see that. Replugged, so I can just drill a new, I've got a new body coming, so I'm going to just drill new holes. There was a dent right here in the back of it, so I kind of just sanded that out as best I could. Took a little bit of the amber finish off, but I got most of that dent out. There was a lot of like runs and unevenness in the lacquer on the back of the headstock, so I kind of just sanded that out. So I don't know, it's experimental. Whatever happens, it's still going to play well. Hopefully I can get the finish to look pretty good. But once I take the frets off too, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of think either sand these edges down, or maybe I think the lacquer finish looks like it's kind of coming up on the edges. So I think I might just sand it down and then see if I could fill it back in. But I did try to take a couple frets off without using the heating iron, and it's much more difficult. So if you are taking frets off, heating them up is just definitely the way to go. It makes it a lot easier. It softens up the glue, any glue that might be there. So what I have is a really powerful soldering gun. It has a chisel tip on it. I put a chisel tip, 431 degrees, very hot. What I have noticed a lot of people do, I've seen, is they use solder on the frets. I think why they do that is it kind of is a way to propagate the heat into the fret. So if you this is already probably pretty hot, yeah. So if you put a little bit of solder on the top of the fret, I think what it kind of does, I mean this chisel tip is pretty hot. I mean but if you put the solder on there, it kind of helps translate the heat into the fret. That's what I think the purpose of this is. So the solder just sticks right on the top of the fret, and then you just go over it with a really hot soldering iron, and it really heats it up quickly. And then I have this nice tool. What I do is I just kind of like put my left hand down close, and I kind of just wiggle it underneath the fret there, and just kind of work my way down. And the fret's already pretty hot because it's coming off pretty easily. So it came right off, no problem. Came off pretty clean too. There's a little bit of a lacquer film there, but I'm going to sand that down, and I'm going to try to shellac. So I'm going to do another one here. Let's go ahead and put a little solder on the fret. And just kind of move. What I do is I just kind of move that solder back and forth on the fret. It's a shame I have to take these frets off too, because I did like the size of these frets, but I did buy some nice medium jumbo frets to put back on. I just didn't like the way they finished the edge. It was just really poor. I guess that's why it's a factory second. But here I'm just doing it again. This is a really hot chisel. I mean this is 400 degrees here, so this is really hot. It doesn't take much. I think it's already probably up to temperature. So what I do, I just kind of like use my left hand to guide it, trying to just get a little bit under. Oh, this came right out so easy. Look at that. So that's it there. Really nice tool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like knock off the high spots And I'm going to take off a little bit of the finish of the lacquer. I'm going to kind of just, I'm just going to sand the edges. I don't like pointy edges on my fretboard. I mean, these are just kind of pointy, and they look like there's cracks in the lacquer. So I'm just going to take that off. I'm just going to knock it off, and I'm going to round off these edges. It's gonna dull it. It's gonna make it dull. But I'm gonna try to put the color back on with some shellac, and then I'm going to re-lacquer it. Either spray it on and brush it off. Brush it on. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet. So this is the first step. I've got a damp cloth here. Just kind of wipe it on. And the headstock still. I mean, when they sprayed this guitar originally, they really did a poor job. I mean, that's why you get these things at such a deep discount, factory second. I mean, you can really just see there's that white stuff there is the lacquer coming up, and you can just see that there's all these drips, like right there. There's a high spot of lacquer. I just want to just kind of knock all that down. I'm just sanding the lacquer basically at this point. Now this Telecaster is going to be pretty nice because it's going to be all black except for the, the fingerboard. But I'm going to have black tuners, locking tuners, a black body, black pickguard, all black hardware. So it's going to be like a black bridge. So it's going to be blacked out. You can see here's where that dent was in the back of it. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk here by taking the lacquer off, but I don't like the looks. I don't like the look of that, those drip marks and just poor looking lacquer finish, and then also kind of the sharp edges here. So just knock those down. They even look kind of dirty for some reason. It's almost like they were cracked and then filled in with dirt. It's really strange. You can see it there. I'm going to sand that off. I know I'm taking a risk by sanding down on this so hard, but you know what? I only paid a few dollars for this neck. And this neck actually feels pretty good. I mean, it could have been a really nice quality neck. Maybe it will be again soon here if they had done a better job. That's why it ended up in the bin, the factory reject bin. It's nice to have rounded edges. When I put the new frets on, I want to go all the way to the edge. I don't like to slip off the edge of the frets. It's weird, there's like a line right there. It is coming off though. It came off up there. It's still here. It's strange. It's almost like a crack in the lacquer that's filled in with dirt. It's really bizarre. So let me continue to work on this, and then I will try to put some shellac on here and see if I can get that yellowed finish back, and then see about putting a coat of lacquer over the top. So I'll be back. So I just wanted to show you that I'm applying the shellac, and I think it's working absolutely perfectly. It's an amber shellac, and the places where I sanded are blending right in. I was probably going to take more than one coat. And the places, see here, like you can see right here, here's the place where I sanded. If I put the shellac on there, look at that, it just kind of like blends right back in. And then I'm just putting it on the whole fretboard because it kind of is bringing back that nice amber tone that it originally had. So it's blending in where I sanded to the bare wood, and then bringing back that nice amber tone, which I think looks really nice. I think it's going to look really nice with the black, all the blacked out Telecaster parts. So there we go. Just paint it right on. I'm going to see. I think I might put a coat. Now, once I'm done with all this, I think I'm going to put a coat of gloss lacquer over it. But this is an amber shellac, and it has that vintage amber look to it, and it kind of just repairs all of my sanding marks here, and it just brings out the nice rich tone of the original finish again. I'm surprised it's actually working this well. I didn't think it was going to be this easy. I'm very, very happy about that. And it's nice because it gave me the ability to sand the edges of the neck down and get rid of those harsh corners. But now I can go ahead and kind of fill in all my tear out from pulling the frets. That's disappearing. And that's going to be hidden by the new frets anyway. And then you can see the difference though, how it's bringing out the beauty of the original finish in the wood. Wow, shellac is really really working out well here, and it fills in all of those, hides all the tear outs. They kind of just disappear. You can see all those tear outs are just disappearing. And then I did the headstock too. It looks much better. And I'll let that dry, and I'll probably put another coat on where I did my sanding my edges. And on the back where I had that dent, it filled that in very nicely. I'll show you that later. I just want to let it dry here. Paint the sides. It goes on really smooth too. Dries really fast. I think this is alcohol based. It's already starting to dry. And you can probably just sand it and blend it in, and put a few coats on, and then let it dry really well. You can actually, like, in places where the wood was light, I kind of just dab it on there, get it a little bit darker, and it just fills right in. It's really easy to work with. And then here's the edges where I sanded, and I'll probably give them another coat, but they're almost gone. You can almost kind of make it a little bit darker where you want it to be by dabbing it on there. And then you could probably, once this dries, then you can kind of blend it with your sandpaper. Like really fine sandpaper. See that? Like there's a little bit of, dark spots there. They just come right out. Just brush them and they come right out. I think with the black guitar and the black tuners and the black dots, it's going to really going to look good. So I'll just continue on with this process, and then I'll start putting the new frets back on. We'll go through that and the new tuners, and then we'll start joining the neck to the body once I get all the body and all the new parts. Stop it there. So I wanted to just show you this. I've been putting on coats of shellac. It's an amber shellac, and it's really looking really nice. You can see for the headstock, there's kind of a mottled finish. It's kind of like light and dark areas where I kind of put the shellac on a little bit heavier and left it a little bit lighter in other areas. And I've been smoothing it out with really fine grained sandpaper. And then also you can look at the neck. It's a little bit rough right now, but it has that nice patina look to it now. Now the shellac is a little bit has relief, and I need to take some maybe 1200 sandpaper and just kind of smooth it out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some 1200 sandpaper and smooth it out. I don't know if you know, but on the back of the neck there was actually a dent in the finish, and I sanded that all down, and I had to really sand it pretty hard until I got to almost to the bare wood. Then I just kind of filled it back in with shellac, and you can see there's no dent at all. It's really a nice finish. So the shellac's a little bit rough right now, but a little bit runny. It's got some relief in it, but I'm going to hit it with some 1200 grit sandpaper, and then what I'm going to do on top of this is I'm going to put several coats of clear lacquer. Now I know a lot of people don't like clear lacquer on their fretboard, but I do. I think it's nice. And then a few coats of clear lacquer, and then smooth it with 1200 grit sandpaper until I get a really nice glossy neck. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put the new frets on. So I just wanted to show you what I'm doing now. So this is the shellac that I put on the guitar, and I'm wet sanding with 1200. It's really fine paper, and I put a little bit of soap in the water to get a little bit more lubrication. And all I'm trying to do here is level the relief that's in the shellac. And what you can tell by looking at this fretboard is that the shellac has really put a nice, beautiful patina on the fretboard, and now when I'm sanding it, it just looks beautiful. And when you look at the shellac now, it's level. All the high spots are down, and it's just smooth. And so I'm just going to keep working it with this 1200 grit sandpaper and just get that shellac nice and smooth. And then actually what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to paint. I'm going to brush on clear lacquer instead of spray it. Now I know that's probably not the way most people would do it, but you know, spraying on the lacquer is just smelly, and it just gets everywhere. It stinks up. You know, you got to do it outside, but even if you do it outside and then you bring the guitar neck in, it just kind of smells. So I'm actually going to try to brush it on, and then light thin coats, brush it on, and then wet sand it with 1200 between each coat, and see if I could build a nice smooth, even finish with that. So but I mean, it almost looks good enough just to keep it as it is with the shellac. But I'm just going to seal it up and give it that coat of gloss lacquer and see how that looks. So I'm just going to keep working on it with the 1200 until I get it nice and smooth. And you can see too, the headstock has this nice mottled finish look to it now, where some of the shellac is darker and some is lighter. It just looks really nice. It almost looks like an old guitar patina. So on the back you can see the shellac's a little bit uneven. So I'm just going to keep working it with the 1200 until I get it really smooth and glossy. Then I'm going to start with the clear lacquer. So So what I've done now is I've put about 3 coats of lacquer, clear lacquer, over the top of the shellac. Now I've brushed it on, and when you do that, you know, there's like topography, so there's high spots, there's low spots. So what I've done now is I've taken wet sanded, took some 1200 grit paper, very fine grit paper, 1200 grit, water, a little bit of soap, and I've just massaged and rubbed and rubbed and rubbed. And if you look right down the neck in the light, you can see the little hills and valleys, and you just need to keep going with the 1200 grit, keep knocking down those hills and until everything is smooth. So you can see now the dent is gone. It's smooth as glass. And what I'll do now, just to go an extra step, is I'll take some metal polish. It's actually metal polish, but it's very fine polish, very fine. And I'll take a nice clean cloth, and I'm just going to continue polishing. And then at the end, I'll put on a coat of wax. But right now, it's just going to be this metal polish. And so this is kind of what I did with the 1200 grit sandpaper, though. I just wet sanded it, put a little bit of soap in there, because soap acts as a lubricant, and it just kind of helps the 1200 grit paper just glide over the surface. So what I'll do is I'll just squeeze some of this metal polish onto this, and it's very fine. And I'll just kind of, I'll just massage it here. And you have to, you know, really rub a lot with this because, you know, it's like 2000 grit sandpaper. So I'm just taking, you can rub pretty hard. You're not going to scratch it. It's very, very fine. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to smooth out that lacquer even more. And the best way to see if it's smooth is just to look at it under the light at an angle, and you can see that it's becoming smoother and smoother, almost like glass. And I'm just going to keep at this for a while. And then when I'm done, I'm going to clean out these grooves, and I'm going to refret it. But first, before I do that, I just want to make sure I've got a nice glossy finish here. You can already see it starting to shine more. This neck's going to be beautiful. So you can see the modeling effect, or the different color variations with the shellac, the amber colored shellac. And now I'm just trying to smooth out this lacquer coat and make it shiny. And I'll just probably give it like a really light coat of wax just to seal it. So I just keep working this and working and working, and I'll be back. So let me show you what I'm doing with these tangs. So I'm trying to make sure I take off enough of the tang so it just fits the width of the slot in the neck. So a little bit has to come off. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this, I know. I don't have the tool. I don't have the tang nipper, so I'm going to use a Dremel. I have a variable speed Dremel, and I have a metal cutting disc on the end. You got to be careful with this, but you know, it's not as hard as it looks. It's pretty simple. All I'm going to do is take off a little bit of the tang with this. That's it. How easy is that? You can even just clean it up a little bit too. And if you have to hit it with a file, you can do that. But that's it, no big deal. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Just take off a little bit. How easy that is. Okay, now let me show you what I did here. Here's the neck. I don't know if you can see it real well. Try to do the best I can to zoom in on it. Hard to see, but now the groove doesn't go all the way to the edge of the fretboard. It only goes there's like a 1/16 of an inch. And I want that tang to fit right in that slot without going up to the edge. And now that I've trimmed it, it fits there. It fits. That's it. Pretty simple. And I built these blocks over here. I don't know if you can see these blocks. And I just numbered them. So 1, 2, 3. I'm on the third. I just keep 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got the little 12 there. And then I just keep going up. And I'm just going to go ahead and just keep doing that. I want to just see this neck too. Look how beautiful that neck looks. I put that amber on there and I clear coated it, and then I wet sanded with 1200 grit. Look at that neck. I think it's beautiful. It has that old patina look to it, but it's just smooth as silk feel to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep working on these frets. Once I get all the tangs trimmed, I'm actually going to use Titebond. I'm going to fill the grooves with Titebond, and I'm going to knock these in and do it that way. I don't want to put any super glue on here. I don't want the super glue to ruin my finish. So I'm going to use Titebond, water soluble bond, wood glue. And this is acceptable. I'm just going to let it fill in the grooves, knock all these in, make sure they're in well, let it dry, and then it'll wipe off while it's still wet. I'll be able to wipe off all the glue, all the residue, no problem. So I'm on the 4th fret now. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the tang. Tang's a little wide, you can see. I'm going to go ahead and just keep trimming them until I get all the way down. Okay, let me show you what I'm doing now. I'm putting the frets on, and I'm using water-based glue, some Titebond. So let me show you the process here. So I have all my frets laid out. I have the tangs cut, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue there. Work it into the slot, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put it on my tang. Oops. Just use the glue here and brush it on my fret and on the fret ends. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to hammer them on. I'm kind of putting a little bit more of a round on the bottom side, the high E string side, because I don't want the high E string to catch underneath the frets. So I'm just and I've rounded the fretboard off a little bit just to give it a nice, silky feel. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of round it off a little bit more. Make sure I've got some glue all the way on the underneath the end, and then I'm just going to wipe off the excess. And just want to make sure that I'm really well seated down here. It looks like it's not. Just going to round it off a little bit. I want it to feel like it's... I'm going to still nip these off. So... That's what I like about the water-based glue. You can just wipe it right off. I'm just going to continue on. I'll do one more. And just go ahead and put a little bit of glue let the glue work its way down in. Oops. And I'm just going to continue on, and I'll be right back. Okay, I just wanted to show you that I did end up clamping this neck while the frets were drying. So what I did is I clamped it this way because I wanted to apply pressure on the edge of each side of the fretboard. Not so much. I mean, I wish I had a board that had the same radius as the fretboard that I could clamp on, but I didn't have that. So what I did is I just tried to put the pressure along the edges with four different boards like this and the clamps. And I just did that while it's drying. Just wanted to show you that I did end up clamping. I mean, the best way to do it would be to have a radiused board, you know, same radius as the neck, and just place it right on here and clamp it down. But I didn't have that, so this was probably the next best thing. But the glue's dry now, and the frets are really down nicely. So the next part is just to cut them off and then dress the edges. So that'll be next. So I'm just clipping off the ends of the fret wires with this nipper tool. So you can see how that's done. Next thing I'm going to do is tape off the edge of the fretboard, and then use that to protect the edge of it, and then start beveling these fret ends. Be right back. So all I'm trying to do here is have a file, right angle, 90 degree, I'm just trying to get the frets even with the edge of the board before I try to bevel them. I'm trying to be very careful not to damage the edge of my fretboard that I just spent a lot of time refinishing. Frets are really sharp right now. I'm just trying to get them to the edge of the fretboard. It's starting to take off some of the tape, which is making me a little nervous. I'll try to this one's a little bit sticking out a little bit. Pretty good. At least now the frets come all the way to the edge of the fretboard, the way they were before. That wasn't the case. The next thing I want to do is have my angled file, and that's going to put an angle on these frets. So I think before I do that, I'm going to try to put some more tape down here. Try to put some tape down where it's getting thin. So this block has an angled file, and it puts the angle on the frets. I forgot what the exact angle is. I think it's like what is it? 30 some degrees. Can't remember. Look that up for you. I'm just going to keep working on this, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to angle the frets at the very edge. And then once I get that angled in, then I'll be able to knock off the corners with a file, with a rounded file. So I'll show you that. So I'll be back here. I'm just going to keep working on this, and I'll be right back. So what I'm doing now is I have a three corner file, and I've polished off the corners so they won't scratch the fretboard. And all I'm doing now is just I taped off the fretboard. I don't want to damage the finish, but this will also protect the finish by having these corners grinded down and polished. So all I'm doing now is just taking off that hard corner on each one of the frets. Just like to work one way. Just hit that corner off on every fret. What I try to do is I like to try to end up with a spherical end. I see a lot of frets come from the factory and they still have that bevel on there, but I like to try to get rid of that. But the one thing you really want to try to get is that sharp corner right there. So I really try to get the file down into that sharp corner. You can hear it. Trying to get that corner, and the tape kind of helps protect the fretboard. So I'll go this way. Corner. I like to work one side and then go back the other way. That way I'm just giving it the same motion every time. I'm just rounding that end. Take it right off. Just kind of give that kind of a motion to the file. You can see that sharp corner come right off. Now I just like to go the other way. So what I'll do is I'll just sharp edge. I'm eventually going to just kind of like round the tops off. A bit harder this way. Maybe I'll try to work it this way. Go back. That edge right there is so sharp. So once I get that edge off, then I just like to try to make the ends a little bit more spherical. Best way to do that is just to bring that file in. Knocking off all those sharp edges. It's becoming more spherical looking now. I even like to knock the beveled edge off too. Just gives it a nice warm look to it when it's a nice spherical end. Knocks off that rough spot. After I'm done with this, I'll leave the tape right on and I'll just do the fret level. So that's my next step, is to level the frets and then re-crown them and then polish. So that's already feeling much better. But once I go ahead and level the frets and polish them, they'll be even that much smoother. So I'll be back for that next step. Already feeling much better. Okay, what I'm doing now is leveling. So what I've done is I've taken a black Sharpie and I've blackened every one of the frets so I could see where the high and the low spots are. So this is 320 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to run I want to see where okay, you can see there's a low spot there. Low spot here. You can see this fret is low compared to the other ones. It still has the black, so I need to keep working. Still kind of low. Almost there, getting close. Using this opportunity just to round those frets off a little bit more on the end. This fret's really low compared to the other ones, but I don't want to go too much further. I think it'll be alright. It's pretty much there now. Go ahead and keep working the edges off. Just trying to round them up a little bit. Just make sure I take a little bit off the bottom frets just to give it a little bit of a slope down. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Now, I have to put the crown back on. Now I need to recrown the frets. Now that I have them level, I'm going to go ahead and mark them again. So the frets are a little flat right now, so I need to round them back again. So this line kind of tells me where, when I have that rounded fret again. And so basically what you want to do is you want to have that black line as narrow as possible on the top. You want it to be very like a line almost. You don't want it to be, because right now it's flat, so the line is wide. Here's a fret crowning tool. So I'm just going to kind of like just re-crown them. Another way to recrown too is to use the file, and you can just kind of see, the file is a little more accurate because I can put the black line. See how I'm thinning the black line? Using the file, just rolling it up. Line's getting thinner. Means I'm putting the crown back in. Just want to keep doing that until the line is really thin. Whoop. There, that's perfect. See that? I just thinned that line. I think somebody calls that the landing strip. You want that landing strip to be as thin as possible. That means you got the crown back into the fret. The file is actually kind of nice because it's a lot more accurate. I can really have a lot more control over it. Let's look at this one again. Come back to that one. There. Let's see how this one is. Oops. Keep working it. Actually, the file is the way to go. A lot more accuracy with the file. See, I can get that line nice and thin. See that? That's exactly what you want. Crowning tool is a little, you just don't have as much control. I'm just putting the crown back in just by increasing the width of that landing strip. Just rolling it up. Till it's nice and narrow. There. Perfect. After I do this, the next thing is going to be polish them. So I'll start with finer and finer paper until I get to 1200 grit paper. Just work on the frets, just keep polishing them. These are rough now from the file. There, that's good. Yeah, I think the file is the way to go if you really want to be able to see the crown and really want to have accuracy. You can see my landing strips are really fine. That means that the crown is back into the fret. This takes a little getting used to. These frets are turning out really nice. The ends now are smooth as glass, and they're really close to the fretboard, which I like. Because I don't want the strings getting caught under the frets on the end. Hate that. I'll just keep working this and then I'll come back to polish. So I don't know if you can see this, but those black lines now are really thin. So that means the crown is back in and only the very top, very small, thin part of the top of the fret is still has the black mark. So that's what you want to do. You want to thin it up. So now that means I have the crown back into all the frets. So now I'm just going to polish. So now I'm just moving up to 600. I'm just going to do wet sand now. And I'm just going to try to smooth these out. So the 600, I get a little bit more polish on them. And I'm going to move to 1,000. And I'm going to finish with 1,200. Put a little soap in the water to give it a little lubrication. So just keep working these frets smooth. And I checked the level on the frets. The frets are incredibly level. So I put the straight edge on the frets and looked. There's no light under any of the frets. It's basically perfect. And there's a little bit of a hill, a decline here, which is exactly what I wanted. Because I like the frets right at the bottom to just have a little bit of a, not much, it's just a tiny bit, but just keep them out of the way so they don't buzz. And the ends here just keep getting smoother and smoother, which is nice. Keep it wet. So there we are with that. So now I'm going to switch to 1,000. So I'm just trying to polish them up now. So this is really fine. So now I'm just trying to put a shine to them. Yeah, they're getting shiny now. One thing I want to do too is I have a loop, which is just a magnifying glass. I just want to look at the fret. To see the crown. And they're crowned, perfectly crowned. They're not flat, rounded. So you take out a magnifying glass and you can kind of get a look at it. Not a bad idea. So I'm still working with the 1200 or the 1000 here. Just trying to get everything polished. Might even do the final polish with the 1200 and take the tape off, because it's not going to hurt the fretboard, and it's only just going to give the fretboard more of a polish. At the very end, maybe I'll just do it lightly. There we go. Make sure I polish those edges. So it should be getting nice and polished now, and the crown looks good, and they're flat. Everything about working on a guitar is a lot of work. Just putting the tape on the fretboard takes time. But the results are, the result here is going to be beautiful, I hope. So that's the 1000. And I'm just going to go with the 1200 now. This will be it. The finest one. Put the polish on. You can really see they're starting to get shiny. After I get this done, I'll just take the tape off and probably give it one last polish, and then see what it looks like. Be right back. Okay, here's the big unveiling. Try and pull this tape off, not easy. Frets are looking good. Remember, this was a reject, factory reject neck, and the old frets didn't even come to the edge of the fretboard. They were short of the edge of the fretboard, so the strings would fall off the edge of the fretboard when you played. I mean, they would get caught under the fret and everything else. It was terrible. So it had to be refretted. I like the old frets too. They were a nice size and everything. It's just that just poorly executed. That's why it ended up in the bargain bin. You can see this neck looks really nice. Look at that. frets are smooth as glass. I've got to shine it back up again now. This tape is really dulled the finish a little bit, just temporarily. Like that. This is just the 1200, so it's not going to hurt anything. Just got to get the adhesive off though here. The hard part's just getting the adhesive off. So now I'm just taking the 1200 grit, a little bit of soap, and I'm just going to go over the entire board. This will just get off all the residue. Give the frets a final polish. I clean my water too because you don't want that grit being swirled around on your board. A lot of this is not sanding, it's just the grit coming off. You can feel it getting smoother. Just it's gliding over the frets now. Still have that adhesive on here. It's driving me crazy. I change the water again real fast. It's amazing that adhesive from the tape is everywhere. Can't get it off. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is use some of this polishing compound. But first I want to get all of this adhesive off the guitar. So I'm going to work on getting the adhesive off, and then I'm going to use the polishing compound on the entire neck, and I'll show you the result. So now what I'm doing is I'm just using this polishing compound to do the final gloss, put the final gloss on the neck. And you can tell there's a lot of the fine particulate from the fret sanding still coming off on the rag here. So it's helping to clean the neck, and it's helping to put that shine back on. So I'm doing the whole neck. It's taking off the adhesive too, which is good. The adhesive residue is everywhere. I have to get some new tape. See, look at that. So I'm going to get a new one. Working the fretboard just as much as the frets themselves. That adhesive is everywhere. There's a stuff on Amazon you can get. It's called semi-chrome, which is basically what I'm using here. Okay. If you're looking for this, you can look at semi-chrome, SEMI, on Amazon. So you can see the black is from the frets is still coming off. Still coming off. So I'm just going to keep working it, keep polishing. You can see they're getting shinier and shinier. The black is still coming off though. Keep going to a clean cloth. See how much black still comes off. Look at that. Look at that. Wow, I'm so shocked. Getting better. You can see they're really starting to shine now. Next time I do this job, I'm going to make my own frets instead of getting the prefabricated frets. I want to be able to be in control of the radius that I put on the frets. I want to have more radius than the fretboard radius. I like to curve the ends, almost feel like I'm curving the ends into the fretboard on this type of neck. If you have a bound neck, that's different. But I want the radius to be a little bit more than the radius on the neck. I think the ones that I bought prefabricated could have been more that way. All right, so now I think I'm kind of in the end stage here. Just going to now I'm just going to buff it out because the chrome polish is, the residue of the chrome polish is still on here. Shouldn't have put this string tree on yet. it really puts a shine on the neck. Watch this once I buff it out. Oh my, yeah, it really, the chrome polish is the key. Look at that shine. It puts a shine on the neck too. Look at that. It's beautiful. So I'm just polishing the back of the neck now, and you can see that the chrome polish is doing exactly what it says it does. Okay, so I think the camera cut out on me last time, but so here's the finished product. The frets look really good. I mean, they're nice and shiny. The fretboard is nice and glossy. Now this is a Telecaster neck, and so I'm going to join this to a Telecaster body and finish the build. So this is just the reconditioning of the neck. So if the next video will be joining the neck to the body and then just completing the build, just keep moving forward with the build. So if you'd like to continue on, video 2 will be the guitar build, joining the neck to the body. So if you'd like to like and subscribe, hit the bell. When the next video comes out, you'll get notified. You can see me continue. The neck looks really good, I think, and the frets came out really good. So let's see how it goes.